Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the three following speakers to come to the rostrum so that we can all see them. I'm going to call Mrs. Floriane Charles, Mrs. Tamara EELSING, and Mr. Thierry Duquesne. I will start by introducing Mrs. Floriane Charles. She is working for Actiris and she is the diversity manager. She's been diversity manager for 1 year. So the idea is to make the services of the public administration more inclusive so that each worker will feel included, promoting human contact, taking on board the developments of society. She's been working in the fight against gender discrimination and integration. Floriane, you have the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure you can see me so that I can comment on the slides. I joined Actiris a year ago as a diversity manager, and I want to thank you for having invited Actiris. I am representing, therefore, Actiris in the capacity of an employer. So diversity and well-being is part of our well-being, is part of our DNA. And in fact, this is part and parcel of our contract. This is a strategic objective that we want to achieve in our management contract. And we have several people working on this in the general management.
Je peux parler sans micro. Quelqu'un peut venir l'éviter. C'est pour le Zoom, en fait, qu'on a un problème. Ok. Est-ce que allez-y. Un petit souci. C'est au niveau du son. Dès que j'active le son pour partager le son d'ici, inversement, du coup, je peux permettre d'activer le son. Parce que je crois qu'ils sont éteints. Ça, c'est pas grave. Que tout le son soit coupé, ça change le partage du son. En fait, c'est le terme PC. C'est juste des speakers qui sont coupés. Ok, d'accord. Donc, je coupe les speakers, mais je partage le son. C'est ça, exactement. Pour être sûr, je vais repartager. Faut couper les micros de l'accès. Ok. Du coup, je coupe mon micro là. Ah oui, tu peux. Bien sûr.
Voilà, désolée.
As I was saying, diversity is really part of our objective number 9, which is to invest in well-being at work and developing and enhancing the team's skill. So in the general directorate where I work, we have we are diversity, and then there is active, inclusive actions to raise awareness on these issues. Then we also have a service, a department fighting against discrimination to help those who are seeking a job and feel victim of discrimination. I'm not working on my own. I have made sure that there is synergy with trusted persons, advisors, internal, external, trade unions, inclusive officers, and then we have the well-being officer and the occupational medicine representative. So since I'm the employer, who are those who work with us, who are our partners? We have a payroll of close to 1,600 employees. 65% are women, and 61% of managers have identified themselves as women. And then if you look at their work status, there is the same ratio, namely that women are strongly represented at level 1 and level 2. The total mean age of our workforce is 41 years old. Out of 25 persons with a disability, 21 benefit from reasonable accommodation. And in 2020, the majority of parental leave for corona virus or parental leave tout court have been granted primarily to women, 76% in one case and 86% in one case. 46% are of Belgian origin and 53% of foreign origin. This is important because in the framework of harassment and discrimination, there can be crossed or double discrimination. So why has Actiris been involved in responding to harassment and the fight against sexism? Well, in 2020, IFH received 736 reports on discrimination in the field of recruitment, selection, pregnancy. 80% of women say that they have experienced ordinary, subtle sexism, mansplaining, interrupting, appropriating. 72% of the victims declared that this violence suffered at work has really generated stress, anxiety, depression, motivation, and a poor team context. The effect is that because of fear of losing their job, there is underreporting. In terms of protection and well-being of our employees, we need to act, but also to have a role as a model employer. We wanted to act. So how did we go about doing that? First of all, we wanted to engage at all levels of the administration. We wanted to be able to quantify, to measure, to fight underreporting, raise awareness, train, and obviously act. In terms of our commitment, first of all, there is an external action to support the Brussels plan to combat violence against women 2020-2024. The former representative will be presented here. We have the member of the SEAS network, Regional Committee of Diversity Managers Association of Belgium, which means that we are quite present outside the company because we want to have an exchange of good practice and have a good impact on society. And obviously we have partnership agreements with UNIA and with the Institute. So this is an external commitment, but we also have an internal commitment. First, on the part of senior management, it's a public commitment, but it's also an attitude, exemplary behavior, zero tolerance. And this is part and parcel of internal regulations. Not complying is a serious reason for being dismissed. We want to be inclusive in terms of organizational culture, and this applies to all the stakeholders from top to bottom. And obviously, we want to have a participatory diversity plan, which should be anchored in our respective cultures, not just for top management, but also in the field. So how do we measure, how do we quantify? Because as I was saying, there has been a lot of underreporting in employment. There is some dichotomy, some power struggle between the employer and the victim. First of all, we measure satisfaction. We look at morale. We try to look at the different criteria for which are indicative of discrimination or harassment. We also keep a record which is kept by trusted persons, by social workers and trade unions to have a specific incident log, and we obviously monitor discrimination against staff. One of the important aspects is to raise awareness and to educate before and after anything has happened. So when people are recruited, information is given about inclusion policy. And we want to remind people of the Actiris values. All hired personnel must follow the EDIV tool within 6 months of being recruited. This is to make sure that we are aware of legislation and regulation framework. We have a biannual diversity plan, which allows for some actions, internal awareness actions, such as during the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and White Pine Action. We also want to look at internal trends and communicate about parental leave, because parental leave is something that mostly women apply for. So we want to remove stereotypes by encouraging men to take parental leave. And we also want to promote wellness and inclusion thanks to the Institute training. And this is done for the social partners, for the trusted persons, and for members of the social assistance department. There is also specific training for managers, learning more about humor, gender-based humor, sexism, harassment, and gender at work. If we talk about men and women, there is a non-binary aspect that needs to be taken into consideration, and then specific training for human resources managers. We also act. We take action. One of the tools most efficient is to have a clear procedure, efficient in terms of dealing with complaints. There is a zero tolerance. Sanctions are taken against perpetrators, whether male or female. We also have an anti-discrimination guideline to allow a person who feels discriminated against by a colleague, by an employer, by a fellow worker. So all three possibilities are considered. So we want to inform about resources available. Who is going to be the resource person who could provide accompaniment in such a situation? We have a social service department with a special entity to be able to hear some of the cases, and this has been reinforced in COVID time. This information is available to all independently thanks to the intranet. Someone can complain saying, I'm the victim of violence at work. What can I do? In terms of accessibility, it means that information is also given on the billboards because people don't necessarily know how to use the intranet. And of course, we have some documents available. We display toll-free numbers where people can get access to more information and where they can be sure that their contact will remain anonymous. Some people have this fear, but we wanted people to be able to be as independent as possible in dealing with what happens to them. What we've also done is go a step further because we want to act against collective violence. And this means that we needed to evaluate our diversity plan before coming up with a new one for the new period of time. And also, we're conducting a new survey on internal satisfaction of our employees to check on perceived sexist issues, and then the Brussels plan to combat violence against women. I'm sure I would have a lot more to say after listening to my colleague's presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And I wish you all a fruitful conference.